Okay, welcome everybody. Give me a second here, but we are doing this with just me today because Corey has decided to take another vacation, which he didn't earn, in my opinion, and he's hanging out on the beach. So instead, I'll be doing this by myself, and we're going to show you what you can do with Bitcoin today. With the blockchain, because we're going to appeal to the lowest common denominator of people in the crypto world, and we're going to talk about the audio level is very low. Thank you. Okay, how is that? Hope that's better. If it's not better, tell me. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. So the gist of it, like I said, Corey is not here. He's partying on the beach like a jerk. And instead, what I'm going to do is appeal to the lowest common denominator of the cryptocurrency world and talk about the blockchain, right? So everyone, actually I was just watching, as I'm sure a lot of people did, Jack Dorsey, Tim Pool, and all these other people, not all these other people, then the executive legal person or whatever at Twitter. And I found it really interesting, right? The whole conversation that they had was Jack mentioning that the blockchain was going to change everything because you can't, everything was going to be there forever. And he was like, there's a real question as to how we're going to handle this and all this other stuff. Now, I thought the conversation was interesting. It was definitely an interesting conversation about how do we handle, content in a world where things can just exist. So maybe you should go watch that. But what I found the most interesting watching it is that they talk about blockchain as if it's this something way off in the future and that we haven't figured out yet. And of course, if you've paid any attention to the history of Bitcoin, it's pretty clear that a lot of people think that blockchain is actually pretty far out. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Of course, we're going to have the Lightning Network that isn't actually a blockchain because we don't want everything in the blockchain because that would be worthless or that, it'd be a waste and it would, quote unquote, centralize everything and all that good stuff, right? But luckily, there's a group of people that know that that's not true and that Bitcoin is capable of so much more. And so because of that, we're going to do something. We're going to show you what you can do with the blockchain. And what that means is, so as we go through all this stuff, you have to understand a few things. I'm going to show you a website hosted on the blockchain. That's important for a multitude of reasons, but the most important one for any layperson to understand is that today when you use a website like Facebook or Twitter or any other website, you're communicating with a server, okay? And someone has to host that server. Someone has to maintain that server. Someone has to get a domain name from GoDaddy or a multitude of other sources to host their website. And then there's a lot of costs associated with continually hosting that website. Now, if you are familiar at all with the concept of what's being called Metanet, it's just this idea of using Bitcoin to run everything. If we do that, what we can actually do is host websites on top of the blockchain, which means that number one, they can never go down. Number two, if someone wants to DDoS your website, which it's a denial of service attack, which happens today all the time, where people will essentially send a lot of traffic at a server to take it down. In order to DDoS a website hosted on top of Bitcoin, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and it's probably not going to work. Okay. So there's the obvious benefit of if I just want to if I want to run a website or make a website, I don't have to host it on a server. There's a multitude of reasons why that's a good thing. The first one would just be, number one, I don't have to pay for it, but number two, it stays there forever. Okay. I don't want to spoil too much here just too soon. But the other obvious benefits of a blockchain is that everything is immutable. It can't be changed. And it stays there forever. So let's start with just a very simple example of what you can do on the blockchain today, because there's only one blockchain, and that is the Bitcoin blockchain, denoted by the ticker BSV. So we can actually see bitstagram. Okay. So, and before I do this, one thing that is going to be very important is that this new internet, this new blockchain runs on top of Bitcoin. In order to use Bitcoin, you need to have Bitcoin itself, right? So a lot of the tools that I'm going to show you use what's called Money Button. If you go to www.moneybutton.com, you can actually create an account and use Money Button to do a lot of the things I'm going to show you today. Money Button is just one wallet, but it happens to be the best UI wallet for a lot of these things that we're seeing today. But it's not the only one. We're going to talk about the other ones as well. I would show you my screen, but it'll show you my whole name. It'll show you how much money I have in it. So I'm not going to do that. So instead, I'm just going to show you. You can go to sign up, and you can give it your name, email, password, and then you're set up with a Money Button account. Okay, so when you see me swipe a button, I'm swiping the Money Button. Now, bitstagram is a little thing created by Unwriter. I'm sure everyone here knows who he is. He pretty much made an Instagram on top of the blockchain. Okay. Now this is important because if you've ever had a picture that you've never wanted to be erased or deleted, you can now put it on top of bitstagram. Okay. It has filters, so I can do a little sepia. And what you're seeing up top here, if you can read that, is we have the network, but then we're pretty much just linking out to the transaction. So this is just a Bitcoin transaction that includes this image. Okay. It has been taken over by this little frog game. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So someone is pretty much soliciting money to double the amount of frogs inside of a picture. So tip me 14 cents to double the frogs. So we're going to do that. So we'll do 0.14 and we will tip. So now he's going to double the amount of frogs, all because we tipped him. Okay. And you can see here, Money Button, very easy to use, processing. Now it sounds like, because I actually just saw this, I knew this was going to happen, that they are deploying some changes right now. And it sounds like I might see some issues with the Money Button while I'm doing this, which is not fun. But instead what I will do is use the QR code real quick, since this is going to probably stick on processing. And I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was bad timing. This is just the way it works sometimes, right? So instead I will use another Bitcoin wallet. And there's many that you can use, but I like Handcash, Centbee, and CashPay. Those are all very good wallets. So let me just scan this QR code here. I like Handcash better, and I like Money Button better than QR codes, I'll be honest. This does get a little annoying here. Just refresh. So you want me to try again here? Just refresh. Just refresh. Okay, people. All right. We'll try the error. See? Error. Error. That's fine. I'm just going to send 14 cents here. And you can see here someone has been tipping money, right? So if I come in here and I say tip 14 cents, and I'm not the first person to do this, payment sent, so you'll actually see my payment come in here on the frog. So you can see here I sent 14 cents. So very cool. On chain, you can make money from your images if people liked them. So this image is I made this weekend because I happened to take a trip this weekend, and look at that, I made 5 cents just from posting my picture. And if you know what this is, it's a pretty great place. So bitstagram, so very simple concept, right? Because everyone is like, well, I want my pictures to stay forever, and I don't want it to get hacked and all sorts of stuff. Wow, that is inappropriate what I'm looking at. All right. So very good. Very, very good. So you can see here, we can just scroll through a lot of pictures being posted to bitstagram. You can actually use your phone here. Yeah, you can use your phone and upload pictures from your phone directly. Wow, some of these pictures. So you can see the frog has been multiplying. So yeah, very good. So this is bitstagram. Very simple concept, right? But today, understand this. You can post pictures on the blockchain today. Okay? Which means they'll never be deleted and they'll be there forever. Now, another great tool. So if you've ever used something called Pastebin, okay? Pastebin.com, There's a few different types. There's haste bin, there's paste bin, there's all sorts of stuff. You can see here. So paste bin just lets me type any kind of text. You'll see code put in paste bin sometimes, a lot of stuff. I'll say create new paste, and it just creates like a nice raw text file, right? So it's obviously very, very helpful, all sorts of stuff. But we can do the exact same thing, only now we're going to store it on top of Bitcoin, okay? So I can do the same thing, da, 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 da. And again, a lot of the problems is that a lot of people have been let's see here, been using Money Button to build their applications, so I'm probably going to see another error here. This is very unfortunate timing. But anyways, so we'll just assume that worked. You can assume that worked, and you'd be like, cool, Connor, that was awesome. I stored some text on chain, and then we would pull up a Bitcoin transaction, and you'd see it right away. Okay. Now this is just, again, paste bin. So literally just paste bin on top of the blockchain. Very useful tool. And again, if you're trying to store something and share it, why would you not put it on top of the blockchain? Because it's going to cost you less than a penny. Now, I'm going to do something that I think is pretty cool here. Okay. So we're going to actually, well, I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to do this if Money Button's not working, but we will see. So I'm going to store a text file that holds a web page. Okay. And then I'm going to, so we're going to store that there. We're going to open up the file and we're going to drag it in. Okay. And it's going to give me a warning, making sure my content is not illegal, which it is not. I'll probably not be able to do this because the Money Button error is occurring, but we will see if it works. Son of a gun. Whatever, not a big deal. We will come back to it. Hopefully they fix it while I'm still on the phone because I have more things to show you, luckily. Now, the obvious thing, so now let's go over the few things I've showed you. So number one, we can store text on chain, any text you want. We can store images on chain, okay? And we can also, what you will see is store a web page on chain, okay? Now, if you can store a web page, so I can show you what I was going to put on there. So this is just a nice little piece of HTML that shows kind of a song list, right? Basically, I can store this. Everyone is seeing that error, so I just asked Ryan. I went out of my way to ask Ryan. So we can store this in a transaction, and then websites like bico.media can actually serve that content to us in kind of, so here, actually, this is actually exactly what I want to show you. Ta-da. So this is actually bico.media / a transaction ID, and you can actually now see a guitar tab. And if we were to pull up this transaction in a block explorer, which whatsonchain.com is a great block explorer. These guys came up to me in London and they were like, hey, what do you want to see in a block explorer? And I was like, I don't know. So I started telling them stuff and they made it. So pretty cool. So good job, you guys, because this is great. So you can see here inside of my op return, which you don't care what that is because you are a normal user and you're not a nerd. But basically all you have to understand is that I'm putting code inside of a Bitcoin transaction. You can see here, tax, chords, all sorts of stuff, blah, blah, blah. But we come back here and it's now served just like a web page, right? So that's great. Okay, this is wonderful. I can click hyperlinks. Now these hyperlinks are going to work for a multitude of reasons, but those can be fixed, right? So you can have hyperlinks. So you can actually have transactions that hyperlink to other transactions. And this is a web page that will never go away. So if you actually remember, a lot of these websites were hosted on places like GeoCities back in the day, things like that. Kind of think of like right now, I think we're in the GeoCities stage of Bitcoin for web pages because you really can't, with 100 kilobytes, there's not too much you can do. But that will very quickly become bigger and bigger. Okay. Now, let's see. So the good thing here is that add.bico.media actually added support for files smaller than 310 megabytes. And basically what they will then do is format it into multiple transactions. So that limit isn't hard set, but I don't believe you couldn't serve up a web page bigger than 100 kilobytes, because I think the web page would have to be pulled up. I don't know. I haven't tried that actually, so that'd be something to try. But showed you how to store pictures, showed you how to store text, and I showed you how to store a web page on top of the blockchain. This is all you need. Everything, all these things can be built today easily. You don't need to really know much of anything. Well, to use them, you don't need to know much of anything, which is very nice. But even if you, any kind of like 5th grader that took a web page class probably could put this thing together, which is, again, if you start thinking about this, so now if you want to build a website that utilizes the immutability of a blockchain, there's a lot of potential for you. Okay. There's other projects here to really call out. Yours.org, obviously, a lot of people probably know about this, but this is just, I have Bitcoin in here, and then I can vote things to the top, and I can tip people. So this is, again, just lowering that friction of being able to use Bitcoin and earn Bitcoin, and I also get paid to curate content, right? This is another great platform. This one reminds me a lot more of a Medium competitor, Literatus, but basically just a blogging site. And so you can just create blogs. You can make it free or paid. So if it's paid, you're going to make people pay you to look at it. You can put topics, draft status, publish status, but it has a great markup. So now nothing here is actually on chain, but it does utilize the ability to take payments and to give payments. Okay. This goes into a host of other applications, and I'm going to miss some. Okay. I mean, I'm getting told that I can't. The world, man, the world. So Matter or now I don't know what it's called now. Matter is so the same people behind Matter are also behind bitcoinfiles.org. So this is a very similar thing to bico.media. So I can either create like you can see here, any kind of text and publish it, and that'll work. Of course, this is going to use money button, but I could use the private key here. So this is actually very nice. See if money button's working. Hey, money button's working. Very good. So you can come back here and I can swipe this here on add.bico.media, and you'll see we now are given a URL that now hosts my text file. It does take a minute sometimes to find it. I'll come back to that. But let's do a paste here. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. I'll add a tip button in case any of you guys want to tip me for my garbage. And we will pay there. Okay. So bitcoinfiles.org, a very similar concept to these, but you can also open static links. So you can see here I can also post in that transaction ID into bitcoinfiles.org. And there we go. Now, they just released a JavaScript SDK, where basically you can create files in a few lines of code, essentially. They're doing a lot of good stuff, so I recommend you check out their SDK. Check them out on Twitter. Of course, we cannot forget about Memo.sv. Okay, so Memo.sv, the original Bitcoin social network. Let's see if I can log in. Thought I was already logged in. I'm going to do that over here in case something fills in. Look at that. All right, so I'm logged in. And you can see here, basically, Memo.sv is just an on-chain Twitter. So I find it funny. Some of these people are still on Memo.sv, but I can maybe tip you 1,000 Satoshis for making us Memo. Broadcast the transaction. I've hearted. I can comment saying, hey, Jason. That'll broadcast the transaction. So that transaction is now on top of the blockchain. I have notifications. Alex, thank you for following us. That's very nice of you. 23 hours ago. So that's good. And you can see that they've enabled large posts. So we've made this post here, which says Bitcoin SV is Bitcoin, a very large number of times. This is because our inner Millhouse, Bart Simpson, obviously. So we kept writing that, and actually Bitcoin.com mined this onto the BCH chain. So, not going to draw conclusions necessarily, but you know how it goes. All right. So Memo. So we have a Twitter on top of the blockchain. We have a Instagram on top of the blockchain. We have a paste bin on top of the blockchain. We have just about everything. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm even going through all of this is because I appropriately named the title, What Can I Do with the Blockchain Today? Now, the blockchain is the most buzzword thing that you ever will see, right? It's taken over the crypto world, essentially. But what people are missing a few things. So there's a few things that come with the benefit of a blockchain is the immutability. Pretty much the immutability. There's not too much else that really comes with a blockchain except for the cost. So this is what people don't understand. So the cost goes down. So I don't actually have to now host a website. I can now point, if you come here so I can refresh, this will probably work. Maybe. So you can recall that geez almighty. All right, well, this will happen at some point, I promise. If I can host a web page on chain, the cost and the barrier of entry for me to start a website goes down. Okay. This is very important because, again, I don't want to spoil anything. I will just say that with other tools that are coming and other just products that are coming, what you're going to start seeing is the ability to store your websites, to make changes to your website, and then to redirect those changes automatically. And so now what you actually end up with, instead of a typical server to client relationship, you just have devices that are querying the blockchain. Okay? And this becomes extremely, extremely important. And I'll get to that, but there is a good point. If you don't know anything about Bitcoin, why do I need Bitcoin for this, right? Why do I need BSV? It's because in order for a blockchain to work, and this is the lie that everyone will tell you, that a blockchain, that Bitcoin invented the blockchain, which is not true. And then they'll also tell you that the blockchain itself can be replicated with other consensus mechanisms than proof of work. Okay? This is impossible. It is impossible, number one, because, again, the blockchain was created in like 1996, I think, the idea of a chain of digital signatures. So that wasn't new with Bitcoin. What was new was incentivizing people to continually build blocks or continually add to the chain of digital signatures. Is the video quiet? I apologize. Is continually add to the chain of digital signatures and to produce that blockchain that we all find ourselves using in buzzwords and stuff. If you don't have an incentive to elongate the chain, I guess, or to build on top of the chain, then you don't actually have a blockchain. And the other important thing is that if the blockchain can be rewritten very easily, then you don't really have anything valuable to begin with anyway. Okay? There's a few things I want to talk about. Okay, so someone asked about DNS. But before I even do anything, because I did want to show off Keyport and the integration with Handcash and Cashport, because I think that's another perfect example of the use of microtransactions. Unfortunately, I can't do this because Keyport is working on some stuff and they'll be back. But I will just give a plug to Handcash is a wallet on iOS and Android that has this functionality enabled inside of it called Cashport. And any application that uses Cashport, you can sign in with your Handcash handle to that website. In Keyport, you could do this. Sign in, and then you could continually have microtransactions sent to your handle. Ooh, thank you, Alex. Try.cashport. Hey, Alex, very good. All right. So I'll show you how it works here. So basically, I'm going to open up Handcash. And if you give me a second. So basically what this application is going to do, if it works, it better work, Alex, because you said demos never work, is I'm going to scan this QR code with my wallet. That is going to tell I'm going to now on my wallet, if I could show you, I can choose to give it personal information, and I can choose how much money of my wallet it can access before I have to approve it again. So if you open from the phone, you don't need to see the QR. Very good, Alex, thank you. So you can go to try.cashport.io on your phone, and it'll actually sync with your application already. So I'm going to tell this application that it can access 50 cents of my wallet, and I'm also going to just, for whatever reason, give it my personal information, which is my handle, first name, last name, and email. Okay, so I just hit connect. Look at that, instantaneous. This is with our old handle here, and now you can see here I have an auth token. So you can enable authorization across your website to essentially keep track of who is accessing the website. I've given it a spend limit in Satoshis. So once that number of Satoshis is hit, but it also has my email here. So you can see that, think about how valuable it is, right? So if I'm any kind of website and I have this information, I can, without doing anything, I'm now just like enabled access to give you money, to take money from you, and then to send you an email. So that's very important. So now I'm just going to say tap to donate, and basically it's now going to send 100 Satoshis to Handcash. So you're welcome, Alex. I expect prioritization. I don't know. So very good. Cashport, a very good tool to have microtransactions on the blockchain. And finally, you can see here that I've now been able to access my website that I put on top of the blockchain. And it has hyperlinks. None of these hyperlinks are going to work. All right. Very good. DNS. Okay, so now I'm going to take this. So now you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, I can have a website on the blockchain. So where's the benefit, right? Like why does this matter? Isn't this going to have bloat? Isn't this whatever else? Now, number one, there's no scaling problem with Bitcoin. We've tackled that many times before. So if you are here because you saw the word blockchain, you got really excited, you can go back through our videos and understand why Bitcoin can scale to infinity. Maybe not infinity, but as close to it as we can get. But this concept of Metanet. So people don't understand what Metanet means, okay? And I'm going to help you get there, okay? And I'm going a little bit off the rails here. From probably what I meant to do. But again, I don't have Corey. I'm just really a crazy person in one room ranting to a microphone. So we're just going to go at my pace, and we're going to do whatever I want to do, and you're stuck with me. So we are going to pull up an image of a Mandala network, however you want to call it. Okay. Now, ironically, I'm going to toot someone's horn. I'm going to give a shout out to Alex Fovel, who I think is second entropy on Twitter. The night before Craig's presentation in London about the Metanet, we had some beers, and Alex was like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called a Mandela network? And I was like, I've not. And he was like, I'm telling you, I think this is the secret. This is the key to everything. And he sent me a paper on it, which there's a paper you can find very easily if you just search Mandela network. And what you end up with is this middle core. See this center core? So in Bitcoin, you can think of these as the miners, okay? Ignore this middle layer for a second, and then now just look at this outer layer. Really, in Bitcoin today, we have, without that middle layer, that small world network where the miners are densely connected in the center, and then you have peers on the outside peeking in, okay? And that's your SPV wallet. That is your Raspberry Pi. That's all that kind of stuff, right? But the important thing that we're going to focus on here is this middle layer, okay? Because really, what are those things? Now, the obvious answer to that question is like, well, it's any node that's really highly connected, but it's not a miner. And so the important thing to understand is we now have to understand what is the purpose of these nodes here. And I think I figured it out, okay? So I'm going to let you in on a little, you 42 people that are watching, you're going to have a little secret, okay? And I didn't really figure this out because it was pretty much in the presentation. slides if you watch Craig's presentation. But it's kind of becoming clear to me as I've been playing with stuff and I'm trying to put a few things together and trying to understand like, well, I want to build this thing, but I don't know how to make it work. So let's start thinking about this, okay? I don't want to use this example, but I will. I'm going to use, I'll use this example, okay? So I have a web page, okay? And I'm going to link out to these songs, right? Now, if I go to this first song, it's a hyperlink. Now, this hyperlink's not going to work because the hyperlink is broken, and it doesn't really, you can see in the bottom, it just links to some generic HTML file that doesn't exist. Let's assume that this does go out to another Bitcoin transaction, okay? And it brings me to another page. Like, let's say, where did the other one go? Here we go. Let's say it links me to this page, okay? Now, if I make a change to this page here, this page is going to still, and by change, I mean I'm going to make an entirely brand new transaction. So I no longer have this transaction link, okay? If I now were on this web page, and let's say I make this my web page, I rename this thing as a redirector, or God knows what I do, but I now make this thing my web page. If I click this link, I'm still going to go to the wrong transaction. And actually, I have the link right here. I'm still going to go to the wrong transaction here. And that's a problem because I'm going to go to the old transaction. I haven't updated this one transaction to have the hyperlink reference the other transaction. Okay? So what you really need here is you need some kind of indexing service that says, hey, by the way, an update has been made to this web page, this transaction. Okay? I now need to point this link to the most up-to-date transaction that corresponds with this initial transaction. Now you're probably like, well, I still don't really get it. What you need is some intermediary routing service that routes you correctly trying to be careful with my words here. What we're going to end up with in this Mandela network is the blockchain is here in the middle. The data lives in the blockchain, but you're going to have all of the data. It's going to be like GitHub, where you have the change made to the website yesterday, the change made to the website today, the changes are going to be made tomorrow and the day after and all this sort of stuff. But you don't want to see the old changes. You just want the most up-to-date thing. But how can I do that without spending money on updating this transaction and every single time I make a change to any of these downstream web pages, right? And the answer is that you don't. You rely on an intermediary routing service right here that understands that maybe I send one transaction to the routing service or node or whatever the hell you want to call it. Let's just call it a global index. And I say, hey, you remember this web page here? Let's say I'm the owner of the web page, and I can prove, yes, just like DNS. Thank you. I'm the owner of this web page. Maybe I can cryptographically prove that. Here you go. I'm signing to prove that I run this web page or whatever. It's my web page. I want to now point this third link or the ninth link to this new Bitcoin transaction. So now when everyone queries my web page, when they click this link, and I'm skipping a lot of things here, but you probably, if you have any kind of understanding as to how you could build something like this makes sense, but I'm intentionally going to leave this vague. I'm now going to click this link and now be update. I'm going to go to the most up-to-date transaction, a routing service, just like DNS. But I think this is more powerful. This becomes a lot more powerful when you start to kind of think about the implications of not just human beings setting up websites, but how does this work for IoT, for machine devices communicating with each other, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So what is the blockchain? The blockchain is the future of the internet. And I don't mean it's the future of a settlement service on top of the internet. I mean, it is the future of the internet where all applications are going to be derived from it. And if you think that you don't, if you're not getting this, and I think everyone that watches this does get it. I think the problem is that we're still in our SV bubble. I'm sure some of that is for us to blame. Like, I think we could probably do a better job being more accessible to the crypto world. But I think that would involve us having to, Guillermo is thinking in the chat. I see you're thinking. Very good. And I guess I'm just saying, we would then have to talk about price, and I'm not going to talk about price. So we will probably just keep staying in our bubble until people realize everything that we've just talked about, and realize that Bitcoin is the world. Now, I do not need to see that one again. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you. And I actually meant to have this, so I apologize. This is not cool of me. I meant to have this ready to go. So someone created something called MetaLens. Okay. MetaLens. Let me just get that running here. So I can use it's a Chrome extension, so I'll just bring it up over here. There we go. Chrome extension. I believe it's Control-Shift-D to use it. What was it again? It is the comment section of the Metanet. Is it Control-Alt-D? Well, I can click it, at least. So I can choose a username. So let's see. I will be Bitcoin and Beyond. Okay. And I set my name. And now you can see here that I can actually now store comments on this web page. Okay. Now this becomes very interesting because this is what Unwriter put out the other day. So I can go to 4chan, and you're probably like, well, why would you want to do that, right? But I'm going to come to 4chan Biz, right? And we can now comment on top of, let's see. Let's find a good one to put a comment in for eternity. I mean, I don't know, man. This is ridiculous. Let's say this one here. Okay. So someone lost all their money on Bitcoin. So no one's commented yet. So we're going to comment saying you should have used Bitcoin.sv. Ta-da. And this application is actually running for free right now. So you can see here, you should have used Bitcoin.sv. And you're going to be like, well, that doesn't seem like it worked. I'm going to exit the web page and come back and hit this. And look, so you can now see that someone has commented on this forever. And someone is essentially paying for this to run for free. I mean, they're paying for all these transactions. Probably not sustainable forever, but that's fine. Let's see if there's any older comments. See all comments. So you can see all the comments that have gone on different web pages. So all these different usernames. So eventually the folks in this stream will realize I've been talking to them from the Metanet. Let's see. What stream is he watching? Hey, look at that. So he was watching the Bitcoin.sv crypto channel. And you can see I have a little notification that someone had commented. I'm going to say, hey, Satchmo, nice to see you here. And what we're essentially doing now is creating, on top of the internet, the Metanet. Okay? It's a public faucet. People donate. Thank you. Do you know where I can find that? Is there a faucet somewhere? Can I find that somewhere? If you have the link, I will happily share it out, tweet it out, whatever else. If anyone knows it, let me know. I will put that in the description and I'll also tweet it out. So anyway, MetaLens, all these comments are on the blockchain, which again, you can see, we can click on all of these things and bring it into, 502. Is the internet down? I mean, what's going on here? 502 error. All right. Well, you can look at the transaction in a block explorer, like maybe block share. I don't know. Let's try that. Whatever. Not important. Doesn't matter. What's on chain is down. That's a shame. So that's how it goes. That's all I have. So this is what you can do with the blockchain today. We showed you to put pictures, text, web pages, everything on top of the blockchain. You can see it stored in the transaction. It will be there forever. I've showed you how you can go to random things and actually comment on top of it forever. Oh, there was one other one. Crap. Oh, wow. Does anyone remember what the name of the Bitcoin screenshot app was? It took like a page shot. Was it called Pageshot? Yep, Pageshot. That is what it was called, I believe. Pageshot. Beautiful. All right, so this is very similar to archive.org, where I can actually take a image screenshot of a web page at a point in time. So have you ever been to archive or archive.is? And I guess web.archive.org. Is this not running? I guess while we see if that's loading, we can actually go to the bottom of metalens.allaboard.cache, and I can actually scroll to the very bottom and tip them. So this is a faucet. So I encourage you to add to the faucet here. Here's the deposit address and a QR code if you want to do it yourself as well. That was only 11 cents, but yeah. Let's see what this guy's commenting on. That was only 11 cents. Someone's commenting on this video. That's pretty cool. With a Facebook group to visit. So, very good. Thank you for commenting on that forever. So Pageshot, here we go. So Pageshot is working. So I'm going to take a URL, like, I don't know, maybe the Mandela Network archive.org link and generate. And you can see here, it's going to now take a screenshot. So it took a screenshot of the page, and I can now store the screenshot of the page on the blockchain forever. Ta-da. And you can see it gives me a bico.media link. And again, Bico takes a little minute. But maybe we can actually try the bitcoinfiles.org and show them off as well, right? Static.bitcoinfiles.org. Ta-da. So we can see the image is right here. So yeah. So this is, I mean, everything. I mean, look at all the stuff I can do with the blockchain that it sounds like you don't think, some people think we can't do. All right, everyone. So thank you for watching. I'm going to actually probably end this early because I really have nothing else to talk about. And I think that's all I wanted to get to. You can do all these things with the blockchain today. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm thinking. I mean, I guess the last thing I will mention, since this is actually an interesting thread. So this is actually from bitcoinfiles.org. So this is the biggest criticism. So why would I ever store data on chain? It costs too much money, all that kind of stuff. So there's a few things to recognize. Number one, there actually isn't a market around data on the blockchain just yet. Pretty much the only market that we have is just this defined limit of 1 Satoshi per byte. And that's really not a good thing, because really what we want to do moving forward in the future is you want to have miners competing with each other to outbid each other for how much they will spend to put data on the blockchain. Okay. This is important because like you have to understand I mean, this is basic, right, market. So this is the whole thing about the block size. If you put any kind of cap in there, people are just going to use it. But if you want to actually compete with that cap, or if you want to compete to have the optimal cap, then you need to have miners compete for it. And this is going to be the same with the cost of putting data on chain. The 1 Satoshi per byte thing just came out of nowhere. I think it might be a limitation in the current code. Actually, I'm actually not positive, but that's the way it is. So it does cost you about $7, I think, to put a megabyte on chain, if I'm not mistaken. So that does add up pretty quickly, right? But that's not necessarily the way it's going to be in the future. Number one, assuming it stays at 1 Satoshi per byte, 1 Satoshi becomes as well. I'm not even going to go there. It will not stay at 1 Satoshi per byte because miners are going to be competing to put data on the blockchain. Now, they're going to tell you they're not, but as storage continually gets cheaper, and as it costs you, I mean, in the future, pennies probably, to add terabytes to your local drive, that's what's going to happen. And it's important because it doesn't mean that they have to store the data as a miner. If we go back to this image of the Mandela network, whatever you want to call it, they don't need to store all that data. These nodes might do that, and maybe they're going to charge you money to access. Maybe it's going to work where you're going to be paying microtransactions to access the data that all of these guys store. And guess what? If this guy doesn't store it, someone else is going to store it because they're going to want your money because they're going to pay to access it anyway. So there's kind of these market forces involved that really solve that problem of like, well, it's too expensive, right? Well, it's only too expensive because we haven't had a market evolve. It is all very early. This is good. So bitcoinpals.org, he mentioned some of the stuff we did talk about. We don't need to host servers for our users, which means, and this is very important, right? Because any developer now can just build an application and not pay to host it. That's obviously very important. This is also very important because really the blockchain itself isn't hackable, right? So what I mean by that is that I can encrypt data, put it on the blockchain, and we haven't even talked about the encryption aspect of Metanet, of course, and maybe I will since I have a few more minutes before I hit that hour mark. Is basically if I can encrypt data and put it on the blockchain, it solves my problem of where right now if I authenticate with a server, if the server is hacked or man-in-the-middled, I'm pretty much screwed. My data could leak. Everyone always wonders, like, how does my data leak at Wells Fargo, right? In some capacity, your data is encrypted, but on the other hand, there are vulnerabilities in that typical server-client relationship. TJ, I will answer your question, but we'll get there in a second. Interoperability and open protocols. So this is very important because if everything lives on chain, then anyone can integrate and add value, right? I think these are 3 great examples, but really the criticism is like, why store data on chain, right? And then the other criticism becomes, if you can prune the op return, the data actually isn't stored forever. And this is the question that just came in the chat. How does data get stored on chain forever? There's no concrete way to do so. Well, there will be, because you can actually put the data as part of your transaction output, which means that the data has to live as part of the chain of digital signatures. Now, that's probably, I would imagine, I would imagine in the future that's just going to cost you more money. That's the way I see it. Okay, but we're not even. Let's step outside that and let's assume all of the data is an op return. Okay. There's a few reasons why the data could be stored forever, but it might not be stored forever by every node in the network. Okay, we're going to come back to this image. Maybe half of these nodes don't view the op returns as put forth by bitstagram as valuable. They're not going to store the data, right? Maybe they're just going to stop storing the data. And then that's where your question comes in. Well, then it's not actually stored forever. But this is where economics kind of plays in. If I have data that is valuable, that if someone thinks it is remotely valuable or has, in the future there will be interest of pulling that data and they could make money from storing that data, they're going to do it. So you keep asking, so the question keeps being asked, well, if they're just going to get rid of the data, why would someone in this section right here get rid of the data is my question to you. You have to go back to Satoshi's original quotes about Moore's Law. Moore's Law is not stopping anytime soon, as far as we can tell. So if storage continually gets cheaper, and I'm a serious business entity right here that wants to serve you content from the blockchain, that you are going to pay me every time I serve you that content or route you to where the content lives on the blockchain, assuming that maybe these nodes right here are those full blockchain data sets, and these are just the people hashing. That's probably more realistic. Why would you not keep the data? Stop saying there's no incentive right now. There is an incentive. Do you think that people have value in having a library of Alexandria, a library of truth? Why do you... you should think that if you're here, because that's what I see value in. If that's the case, the amount it costs, because you have to understand, people are paying to put this data on chain to begin with. So you have to understand that. So I'm already getting paid to take the data in. If I view any possible return on investment of just keeping that data and buying another hard drive, the problem is solved. So what you're telling me is that if you do you not think that there's an incentive to store that data since the cost is so cheap and will continue to get cheaper? That's my viewpoint. Now, I think it's more likely that the miners themselves will just be hashing, and that these nodes right here are going to be the nodes that store the full, and obviously the miners will probably hold the UTXO set. These nodes here will probably have all of the data in all the blockchains. These are going to be the Amazons, the NSAs, like those kind of like literally gigantic data centers that exist just to store all of the data, because they think someone else is going to find enough value to pay them for it in the future. And this is just with pruned data. I touched on very beginning. You can actually store data as part of an output, and that means that it pretty much has to be there forever. I have no understanding why that would ever be pruned. I don't think it can be pruned. If anyone wants to correct me on that, I would love to know. But I'm pretty sure that's not true, that it cannot actually be pruned. And that's probably just going to cost you more money. So if you are worried about someone pruning the data, then just put in an output. And that'll happen with non-standard transactions. Cool. There's something else I wanted to touch on as I was talking, and I can't remember what it was. It was something... Well, I guess I'll just... We're talking about Metanet, right? I'm just going to kind of reiterate something that I rant this all the time to my friends who don't care, but they will. And what I actually said when I was in London, I had a conversation just on and off before we did those interviews with Craig. Something really kind of clicked for me when I was talking with him, and I said, what I said to him is, I said, if this all works, you're talking about taking what today exists as a dystopian future and building something that really enables more freedom. And I'm gonna explain that real quick, if I can. The reason why I said that is if you've listened to any of the stuff about Metanet, it came from this idea of Blacknet. Blacknet was a concept created by Timothy May of an anonymous encrypted internet where all traffic was encrypted and impossible to be spied upon. Now, Craig obviously has his own problems with the anonymous aspect, but if you really look back, the important part of Blacknet was that the traffic was all encrypted, okay? And if you go and watch presentations that Craig has given and kind of the things that he's hinting at, is this idea of all of the data itself can live. I actually think we're doing all of this wrong. Everything that you're seeing here, this is all wrong. Like I shouldn't be serving a web page in plain text. This isn't actually how Metanet will work. How it will work is this is going to be encrypted and it will be served to me by authenticating against my keys, and a whole host of other ways of like, well, how do I pay for it? All that kind of stuff. You need tools to do this, which is why it's not being done today. But really, this can live on chain. The actual transaction can live encrypted, and access to it can be given in a peer-to-peer. I can say specifically who's going to get access, right? Whether that's paid for, whether that's just a private group that I give access to. Maybe if I'm a business, I only give access to my employees, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, the last thing I want to mention, and the reason why I brought this up to Craig is because it's something that's stuck with me because it's something I just keep thinking about. Is there's inherent value to having the world connected. There's inherent value to the Black Mirror dystopian aspect of like all the data lives out there, right? And someone else can do X, Y, and Z with the data, assuming something goes wrong. The most obvious case is I have I had an Amazon Echo. We have a Google Home. And the problem, I mean, it's a very useful tool, but the problem is that all the data itself, I'm trusting, number one, that it's encrypted to Google servers, that there isn't a vulnerability in Google servers, that there isn't a backdoor in Google servers, that there's a whole host of trust involved, right? And I'm just some lowly person, because let's take this further. Let's assume I'm a business that wants to do, some kind of computation using Amazon, Amazon's web services or things like that, right? Imagine allowing you can build systems now where you can have computation done in an encrypted fashion, okay? And I can prove cryptographically that whoever is actually running my computation, whether it's Amazon or someone else, cannot see what they're even computing. I can trustlessly prove that, okay? So everyone loves to throw the whole statist and all that kind of stuff at Bitcoin.sv, but they're the only people who don't want this vision to work. They don't think it can work. They don't, I won't speak for intentions, but I don't think they actually want this to work. And the reason why it's important is that if all of the data itself is encrypted and access is governed by keys, we solve all of the problems that everyone is so worried about when it comes to data and privacy. It solves a lot of problems, actually. Do you not want to get trolled on the internet? Okay, fine. Then only give access to your tweets to people that you hand the keys to, for example. Okay, well, I want to have a smart home. I want to have all my devices connected to the internet, but I don't want my camera to be hackable by some kid who can, put a Google search in, if you've ever seen that happen, right? Like, and there's so many hosts of things that are the problem with current technology and big data that are solved by this concept of the Metanet. I hope I made that kind of clear. There's a lot more to that, really, that I should be talking about. And I will give a shout out here because Bitcoin SV channel, you guys should also check out this channel. They make videos every single day, pretty much put us to shame when it comes to like producing content. But they do a lot of good stuff. So thank you guys. I see you're in the chat. So thanks for doing that. Then you need to, I agree. Camera manufacturers should stop posting default passwords. But it doesn't help when people are, there's a whole host of issues with just smart homes and having data connected to trusted third parties, right? And really get that through your brain that we're talking about taking a future dystopia that was inevitable and making it, in my opinion, what it's really the best it can be. It's not a utopia because I don't think you can build a utopia, but you can build a most free society. So, we'll post the private key to the Genesis block tomorrow. So you can check that out tomorrow. Thanks. All right, that's all I got. I got to just end this. Corey partying on the beach without me, so that's cool. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to sign off, and if I forgot any projects, let me know. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't. I wasn't even showing off projects, more just trying to get across the idea of what you can do with this blockchain. So, wonderful. Thanks guys for watching, and I will talk to you. We're gonna get some good stuff coming soon. in many different ways, but hopefully just look forward to that very vague thing that I just said. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.